Hello everyone, my name is John, I'm the Geeky Fanboy, and welcome back to Doctor Who Series 14 slash Season 1, it's Episode 2, The Devil's Chord. Now, going off from Episode 1, which to me was okay but underwhelming, we're jumping into Episode 2, our first historical episode of the series, which is 60s themed, especially also a Beatles theme, which I think was a big advertisement thing for this episode. As always, the first couple of minutes I'm going to talk spoiler-free, just to give you like my general thoughts and opinions on the episode, so you can get a general idea of it before maybe going in and watching the episode yourself. And then I'm going to jump into spoilers, but don't worry, I'll give you a warning beforehand. So, episode 2, The Devil's Chord. I'm known for being more of a fan of the historical episodes of Doctor Who. Obviously, I'm enjoying all episodes of Doctor Who, but especially the historical ones that are my thing. So I was quite excited to get into this one, especially since this one was advertised as, like the 60s and Abbey Road and the Beatles. Some stuff I'm really, really interested in. I was looking forward to getting into. And overall thoughts are that I enjoyed this episode more than the first one, but I think there's still some room for improvement left. So overall, I enjoyed the historical vibes in this episode. I love that they're going back to like really embracing the historical eras. They're exploring like right down to the costumes, that they get really excited about dressing up in historical outfits, so to speak, because for a time Doctor Who sort of ignored that, which I didn't like. But I'm glad that I'm really going back into it. And the costumes look amazing. Absolutely love the outfits in this, and especially like Ncuti Gatwa and the Doctor's outfits, because this Doctor is like really, really fashionable, and I enjoyed seeing him like in this blue double-breasted suit with the afro. Looked really good. So those were already like some good vibes going into the episode. So the story and the characters. Just like in previous episodes, I'm enjoying the chemistry between Ruby and the Doctor in this. I think they're a good adventure pair, so to speak, and I like that in this episode they bonded basically over their love for instruments and their love for music with each other, which fit quite well because, as we saw in the Christmas special, Ruby is a musician. She plays the piano, the keyboard, so that sort of worked its way into this episode as well. The villain in this one, as we've seen from ads for this episode, is the Maestro, like this very big, grand, eccentric kind of person who can seemingly control music. I thought they were quite a good villain. I honestly had a lot of fun with that character. You could tell that the actor was having a lot of fun playing up like the evilness and the campy humor of this villain, which was very much reminiscent of old Doctor Who villains. And I did like this idea of using music to control humanity, sort of showing what kind of influence music has had on humans and on human history. That was quite interesting. I think music is also used in a mostly creative way throughout the episode. If you worry that this is a musical episode, not quite. Like, there are music bits throughout the episode, like one or two songs that are being played. But apart from like one moment, without spoiling it too much, except for one moment, this episode never goes like full on musical. So if that was your worry, it's mostly okay. Like, the music as it is incorporated within the episode made sense, going with what the villain can actually do. So the overall adventure I thought was quite fun. It was fun, like sort of going back into the 60s, and then of course we also have the inclusion of the Beatles in this episode, which was, generally speaking, a nice idea, but also very underutilized. Like, the Beatles don't really, they're not characters in this episode. Like, if you gonna go into this episode thinking, oh, the Beatles are gonna be like important secondary characters to this episode, no, not really. They have like 2-3 scenes in the entire episode, which honestly was underwhelming, to put it mildly. Like, I was honestly expecting more. Like, just like maybe they didn't get the copyright for the music. I could very much see that, but not just that, also just like using these people as characters in the episode. Why didn't that wasn't really a thing, which disappointed me. But like, it was very much solely focused on the Doctor and Ruby fighting the Maestro, sort of finding a weird way to deal with this seemingly very overpowered kind of creature. And while there were moments in the episode where I thought this was really interesting, how they were trying to fight this weird creature, how they were trying to fight this idea of music maybe disappearing from the world, I thought there was a bit more you could have done with this premise. You could have explored it in an even deeper and a more interesting way. You could have included more characters like the Beatles, for example, since that was sort of the, I don't know, the big pull of this episode, I was thinking. So I was a little bit, once again, underwhelmed by some of the elements within the episode. However, mostly the vibe, I think, of the episode overall was fine. It feels very much like a classic Doctor Who adventure with very high stakes, with a fun villain. There's some, not spoiling it too much, there's some teasers for future villains, for future mystery boxes, which, depending on how you've liked mystery boxes in the past in Doctor Who, you may or may not like. The music elements that do get included in the episode are okay for the most part, some of them better than others. The characters, again, have good chemistry. I'm enjoying the overall like visual vibes of the episode. And I left the episode having had fun. Like, compared to the first one, I would maybe give this episode like a 7 out of 10, which means it's a good episode. It's alright. I would watch it again probably, but it's not gonna be like one of my favorites. And again, you can tell there's a lot more potential to the stuff these actors can do. But I thought you could already at least see with this episode that there are hints at something great that could come later in the season. So I think this is a step up from episode 1, and I am looking forward to sort of seeing where this is going next. So that's it for the spoiler-free bit. I'm going to jump into spoilers for the episode now, so in case you haven't seen the episode yet, switch off. Okay, so let's dive a little bit deeper into the episode. Let's talk about my main complaint, which I already mentioned just now, the Beatles. I was really disappointed by how the Beatles were used in this episode. And I'm not saying that because I'm like a gigantic Beatles fan. I was just sort of looking forward to this being like a fun 60s history-themed episode with the Beatles in it, you know, as major sort of secondary characters, you know, as they usually are when they do these sort of history episodes. And with this, they just didn't do that. Like, I understand that they maybe couldn't use the music because copyright and their music presumably costs a lot of money. But the Beatles have like 3 scenes in this entire episode, maybe. Like, we see them for a moment in their recording booth. And then the Doctor and Ruby go to talk to John Lennon and Paul McCartney, which was alright, I guess. It was mostly just for them to sort of convey the themes of the episode. They were like, yeah, music has gone out of the world, we don't really do music anymore. But that Paul McCartney was like, but sometimes I do still hear the music, blah, 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 blah. And then we don't see them again until the very end of the episode, where the Doctor is trying to banish the Maestro by playing the chord. And of course, I think it ends up being like the chord that Paul McCartney already had in his mind that he mentioned to the Doctor. But like very randomly at the very end, like the piano gets pushed out of the room into the school or whatever the hell they were, the recording studio, like down the corridor. And very randomly, John Lennon and Paul McCartney just show up there. Like, where were they before? And why were they suddenly there to just play the music, to finish the chord? That was it. It didn't even feel like that big of a moment because they weren't characters in this episode. We're supposed to feel great about it because we know who these men are and what band they come from, but it didn't feel special at all because we haven't basically seen them in over 30 minutes since the beginning of the episode. Like, honestly, that was kind of disappointing and underwhelming that they didn't do more with this whole Beatles theme that they were hinting at the beginning of the episode, especially because like Ruby was all about the Beatles at the beginning of the episode, and then they're sort of like disregarded for the most parts of this entire episode, which I didn't understand why they were doing it, because usually they use these history episodes to like introduce us to famous people across history, to teach us something about them, to show us who they were, and then they help save the day alongside the Doctor. And this didn't really happen, apart from the saving the day thing, which felt very undeserving because they weren't in this episode. They just happened to appear there out of nowhere and then just play some music. That's it. Honestly, it felt kind of weird. And speaking of weird music, let's dive into some more of the other music themes throughout the episode. I thought Ruby's song was okay that she played on the piano. It was nice to sort of see the reactions of people across town who heard music for the first time in a long time. And then you get this sweet old lady who starts playing music and then gets got by the Maestro, which was kind of sad. Like that was a good moment. That was a good emotional moment, I thought. The music we hear throughout the episode, also mostly played by the Maestro, I mean, is fun. I think it's implemented in a fun, interesting way. Then we get this like music battle between the Maestro and the Doctor, which I at first thought, oh yeah, that's gonna be fun, but was also kind of underwhelming. I don't know. I thought like it wasn't bad. I enjoyed the music, and I really liked the general premise of this idea, sort of doing like a music battle. But I thought they could have gone a bit more out there with that scene. But before we jump to the end here, but in general, I would like to say that the Maestro, I honestly thought, a very fun villain. Would love to maybe see them return someday if that could somehow happen. Because honestly, I love when Doctor Who does like these big, like just out there, eccentric, sort of like cheesy, campy villains in a fun way. Like really, really entertaining. You can tell that the actor was having a lot of fun with playing this character, and I was loving the energy and the different outfits that the character got. Like they were really like commanding the screen whenever they were on, and you could really feel like the sort of fun, devilish energy that you got from this character. And then, of course, we get the confirmation later that the Maestro is indeed a child of the toy maker, which would explain why they have this, like, very overpowered but sort of bizarre, creative kind of power. Even though I think they could have explained some of the relationships here a bit better, how, you know, that work with the Maestro being a child of the toy maker, you know, the sort of rules that applied here. But I did like the sort of a general idea. And then, of course, at the end, the Maestro, before they're defeated, they give us this hint that there's someone else out there. The Doctor already said that the toy maker mentioned him, that his legions are coming. And then also the toy maker, towards the end of this episode, mentions that the one who waits is coming, or there's someone waiting who's coming. Something along those lines, which, of course, is a very Doctor Who, Russell T Davies, classic-ish mystery box, like right there. Sort of put the teaser in there again, so we will keep watching. So there's someone who we will have in the back of our minds when we watch. There's just someone out there who's out to get the Doctor, who's even more powerful. Someone who's gonna come get him. Obviously, there are no hints yet, really, as to who this person is, who it could be, really. Of course, there are already probably some theories out there, but like within the actual episode and the series itself, we haven't really gotten anything on that yet. And then the Maestro is defeated with the power of the Beatles, who are suddenly there out of nowhere, and then they disappear after playing the piano. And then we get to a part of the episode that honestly irritated me. Then we just get a straight up musical bit. And I'm not negatively minded towards this because I don't like musicals. I love musicals. I love me a good classic musical episode in a show. But this episode was not that. This was not a straight up musical episode. But then suddenly at the very end, we get a musical number. Without the Beatles, I might say. And it just sort of feels very meta. Like a lot of meta and fourth wall breaking jokes already in this series, especially also in this episode, which feels a little, which I usually appreciate, but also feels slightly off for Doctor Who to keep doing it this much. Like, I'm wondering if it actually means something. Probably does. But then we just jump into this musical episode, and that's how the episode sort of ends. The thing is, at this point, the Maestro has already been defeated. So within the logic of the universe, was this really just like a classic musical moment? Was the musical like real for the characters within the show? Were they aware that they were doing a musical bit? Because that was a tiny bit confusing as to what the logistics were of how we were supposed to interpret this. And the thing is, it would have made sense to include a musical bit in this episode if it had been related to the Maestro, because the Maestro was using music throughout the episode and was very much music themed and kept using different types of music as instruments. So it would have made sense if the Maestro had used their power to sort of like induce a musical state within the episode, and then the characters just start singing and dancing. That would have made sense within the narrative. But here, it felt just like it was slapped on right at the end, just to be like, oh hey, we were doing a music episode, so now you have a musical bit. And I was left to wonder, why? Like, it was a fun song, not that great, but it was fun. The choreography was alright, but it just felt weirdly out of place to sort of like end the episode on this. Like, if they really want, why didn't they just go full on out and made a musical episode? Like, I know a lot of people out there don't like musical episodes, but I mean, that's a personal opinion. But honestly, if they already had a villain themed, a music themed villain, why didn't they just do a complete musical episode? Like, I don't know. I know the point was sort of to like that the music was leaving Earth, was leaving humanity, but then again, the Maestro had this sort of power to use music to their will, to shape it to their will, and they could have used it to like manipulate the Doctor, to manipulate Ruby, to manipulate humanity or whatever. Then it would have made sense to just, I don't know, do a musical episode, and it would have been a reason to actually like maybe include the Beatles, because, you know, they're musicians. It's just like in my brain, I feel like they could have done so much more with this premise. And I was just left confused a bit at the end when they had this number. I was like, oh yeah, was fun song, fun choreography, everything looks nice, but why did we do that? What's the how did that work logistically within the show? Also, minor thing here, logistically speaking, we hear the opening, like the Doctor Who theme music, and then it becomes diegetic music, like actual music within the world of Doctor Who itself. Like, we hear the Doctor Who theme music play on the jukebox in the TARDIS. And I was like, so is the Doctor Who theme music a piece of music that exists within this world that the Doctor can listen to? If so, who like, I know it was probably just a fun in-joke, but then that's the kind of shit I start thinking about. I'm like, how does this work logistically? How does it connect? How are the dots connected within the universe? What does it mean? Because fans will jump on shit like this. So, yeah, bits like this that just confused me a tiny bit too much throughout the episode. The thing is, I did have fun with this episode. Like I said, I enjoyed this one a bit more than the series opener, which I think is mostly due to the fact that we're doing history episodes. I like the historical episodes a bit more, like they're really going with the 60s vibe. They're going back to, we're doing historically accurate costumes, we're going in for the vibe. And in this episode we have a villain who's just like out there with the campiness, with the evilness, like acting the hell out of it, acting it all up, just having fun and commanding the scene whenever they're on screen, which was a lot of fun to watch. And you could tell that the Doctor was terrified a bit of you know, the implications of this villain, of their connection to the toy maker, of what could yet come. So there are moments like this that are really fun to watch, and the chemistry between the Doctor, Ruby, and also the villain in this episode was a lot of fun. to watch, and I did enjoy some of the musical bits that were included within the episode, and I like the general theme of sort of like, you know, music is really important to humanity, and without it we sort of lose ourselves and become really, really boring. So there were good moments like this, I think, throughout the episode, but still there is room for improvement. There's still bits in this where I'm like, the actors are really good, but they need better writing, they need slightly better material. Like they just need a bit more to work with, because all of them are acting the hell out of the script they're given. I just wish they had a slightly better script to work with, because you can sort of sense that there are moments of like real greatness in this, that there are things in here where you're like, oh, this could go somewhere. This could go somewhere that's really good. And like look wise, it's cool and it's very shiny, and the cinematography all fun, the music good. You're just wishing for like a bit more. That's just sort of the general vibe I'm getting. I'm enjoying this, I'm having fun, but I also have the sense of there's more you can do with this. So those are my thoughts on the second episode of Series 14 slash Season 1 of Doctor Who, The Devil's Chord. What are your thoughts and opinions on this episode? Did you have a bit more fun with this episode compared to episode 1, or did you enjoy episode 1 a bit more than episode 2? Do tell me down in the comments below what your thoughts are and what your expectations are for the series ahead. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't done it already, and I'll see all of you very soon. Goodbye.